In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to make really nice tight dubstep drums. So to begin with, right click and create a combinator. Inside the combinator, you're going to want to right click, create, and make a mixer 14.2. Now just press tab so you can see behind the rack, and just to make sure that everything's plugged in correctly. Now right click, and whilst holding shift, create the redrum drum machine. Holding shift just makes it so nothing plugs in automatically anywhere. This is so we can apply EQ to each channel of the redrum and send them into the input of the mixer. Now whilst holding shift, create the M-class equalizer, press tab, and now we can take the input of the EQ into the first channel of the redrum and take the output and send it to the first channel of the mixer. Just create another one while holding shift. Remember to do this for every track of the redrum, so altogether you should have 10 EQs in all 10 of the channels of the redrum going up into 10 channels of the mixer. Okay, once you've done that, you should have something that looks a bit like this. As you can see, I've got all my 10 EQs here. If I turn it to the back, you can see how it's all been plugged in. It's looking nice and neat in there at the moment. A good idea now, before we start editing and loading in samples, would be to save this patch as it is. Just so when you want to come to create some new beats, you don't have to go through this whole process and applying the EQ. Just simply click the save patch here in the combinator and then name it as you wish. So now I've loaded in all the sounds I've wanted to use for the drums. I've got a nice little bass drum here, snare, second snare, little clap, hi-hats, nice sharp open hi-hat, more relaxed hi-hat, and a little vocal effect. On the hi-hats I've just panned them to the left and right slightly, just so they're offset of each other. And also on the vocal effect, just simply pitched it down a bit, just to give it a bit more characteristics. And I've also done the same to the bass drum, just to make it a bit more weighty. Okay, let's start with the bass drum. Let's just listen to it now. Like I've already said, I've already pitched it down. Just listen to it how it was before and after. You know, so it makes it sound much more weightier. Cut it at about 50 Hz on the low shelf by a dB, just so the bass can sit over it nicely. And at around 70 Hz on parameter 1, giving it about a 3 dB boost, just to kind of give a bit of punch back to the bass. I've also given the high shelf at around 5K a little boost at by 4 dB, just to bring some presence in the track. Let me just unbypass this so you can hear it. Okay, now let's listen to the first snare. Now let's hear it in sequence. As you can hear, it's a fairly natural sounding snare, but just to give it a bit more of a boost, I'm just going to boost it around 300 Hz by 3 dB, and again at 6K by about 5 dB. Just going to give it a bit more weight. It's going to be the main powerful snare. Now let's hear it in sequence. Okay, let's listen to the second snare. It's a bit more loosely played. It's got a bit more air behind it. Around 8K, I boosted it by 6 dB. Just hear it without the EQ. Let's unbypass it. And now let's hear it in sequence. Another nice effect I've added is the RV7000 Advanced Reverb. I'm just going to unbypass it here. And on here I changed the algorithm to reverse. And you have to play around with the length just to try and get it in time. But what that basically does is it reverses the snare that's played. So when the next snare comes along, it adds a nice little kind of flick, a little whoosh sound. It's almost like you can feel the snare coming in again. You can edit it by changing the decay and the dry and wet, see if you can bring it out and make it a bit more prominent in the mix. But having a nice little kind of subtle flick before each snare really does make it just a little bit more epic. Okay, and the last snare I used was just a really nice basic clap. Not much to it there. Simply EQ'd it around 1.5K by 6 dB. And then also increased the high end at about 8K by 7 dB. Just unbypass it so you can hear it. Another effect I've added was the RV7 digital reverb. Just to give the clap a nice little bit of ambience in the mix. Let's hear that in sequence. Okay, the next two samples are just two nice little shakers. Now they're just panned to the left and right, just offset of each other. Just going to make the track sound a bit more fuller. Just hear that in sequence. So got a fairly basic shuffle rhythm on there. When it came to EQing, I just boosted the high end at around 8K by 4 dB. I did that for both hi-hats, just to bring out those high frequencies. The next sound here is a nice quick choky hi-hat. Just got that at the beginning of each sequence of drums. And when it came to EQing, boosted it around 800 Hz by 6 dB here. And on the high shelf, boosted it by 3 dB at around 3K. Unbypass that so you can hear it. I also added a little bit of reverb, but it plays at the beginning of each sequence so it doesn't drown out the drums in the final mix. I've used a second hi-hat. It's a bit more relaxedly played, and it's on every offbeat of the drums. Kind of just influences that shuffle pattern there. When it came to EQing, simply just gave it a boost around 1.5K by 5 dB, and also boosted the high end by about 6K by about 3 dB. Also added some reverb, just to kind of let it those high frequencies kind of flow a bit better, because there's a lot of space when creating dubstep. There's a very subtle amount of reverb there, but it does bring a nice bit of ambience out in the drums. Last but not least, I've got a effects. It's just a basic percussion effect. Just happens to sound like vocals. I've already said I've pitched it down. It's just at the end of each sequence of the drums. Just hear it without the pitch and with. I didn't apply any EQ to this this sound here. I just simply added a DDL1 digital delay line. Okay, let me just bypass this so you can hear it without. As it's only been played once within the whole sequence of the drum pattern, it's not going to drown out the track with loads of delay and make the kind of pattern sound muddy. Using these kind of effects just here and there, really good and fill the track out, but just make sure you don't overuse them. just changing the delay time here using the milliseconds option, which is much better than using steps because you can get everything just nicely in time and to the beat. Okay, let me just bring these tracks into the mix and let's hear the full sequence. I hope this has helped you out. Thanks for watching, and remember to check the website for more tutorials.